So I tried something a little bit different this time. I looked over this guy's box and pretty much decided this is very much a rush box. It's almost entirely focused in time faction characters. So here I actually decided to ban Akka first. Akka really is one of the best rush enablers these days. So instead of going for one of his time faction buffers, he instead goes for Estelle. Estelle's a pretty good choice. She tanks, she buffs everybody, and she gives extra movement. So once again, instead of going for his time faction buffers, I go for just things I really don't want to deal with, so I get rid of Reen and Arian Rod. So being that he is a big AoE player, he second bans Liana. Pretty bad news for me, as many of you might have noticed, I do tend to pick Liana second quite a bit. So he picks Ares, he's definitely trying to end this quickly. So thankfully, even though I lost Liana, I still have Wiler on my side. Now that Rosensteel exists, I would say Wiler is probably the third best AoE healer. Of course, the biggest risk with using Wiler is always that he's just very, very frail. I've seen Wheelers die to Ares double AoE even with Shrine Minions up. Granted, that's probably a Wheeler with bad HP enchants, but that's still pretty crazy. So you can see I actually let him have Jugler third, which is not something people usually do, but I was definitely a lot more scared of all these AoE characters that could follow up on me. Jugler, of course, can also be a huge AoE character. He can do 3C and then Master of Ice. But the nice thing about facing off Jugler in a situation like that is that he's a one-and-done character. You know, he blows his 3-cost skill and then it's not going to be up for pretty much the entire match. Whereas if I had to face off somebody like Leonhardt or Joshua, their cooldowns tend to be a lot shorter. They're a lot more likely to be running a clock enchant. I don't think I've ever seen a clock juggler before. And in the case of Leonhardt is just pure pain. He can still act again, he can still AoE twice in a row, and if he has a blood sword, you could just get lucky and kill a lot of people. So the biggest issue with my comp is that there's pretty much no way for me to kill that juggler. The big advantage I have here is the fact that Chris is a magic damage unit, so my best option here would be to try to drag the fight out so that his 3-cost skill from his juggler goes away. He of course didn't bring Great Dragon Barrier on his juggler. I actually think if he brought Great Dragon Barrier, that would have been really, really bad for me, because really my only path to victory here is to try to kill everybody around juggler. But until then I have to play very defensively, and just hope that my units can survive when he decides to engage me. So as mentioned, one of my biggest fears here is that he will combine Ares and juggler to KO one of my units. So let's just see if he manages to do that. So right here he engages with Ares. This teleport ends up putting me in one of the worst situations that I could have asked for. He has turn initiative and he has teleport Layden and Landius, so that he can lock down both of them at the same time. And I think it's precisely for fighting AoE teams like this where you really should not bring the 3-cost skill on Wheeler. Wheeler can equip 2 AoE heals, he has both Mass Heal and Dispel. But I think more important than either one of those is that you need to bring Tactical Retreat when fighting Jugler, which is what I'm going to go ahead and do right now. I actually have my back to the fog now, so even though I escaped from Jugler's 3-cost skill, I'm still in a very dangerous position. But as I was saying before, if you use Mass Heal and then Tactical Retreat and then Mass Heal, it means Wheeler can give you 3 pretty strong AoE heals for 3 turns in a row. Dispel is actually a kind of limited use if you just want to heal your HP back. It's just way too weak of a heal, even if you're using Forest Priest. But as you can see, I'm actually really scrambling to get away from the fog now. Because if I allow this to go on, he's just going to wall me into fog and I'm going to be super dead. And I've actually had that happen many times before. That's definitely a big weakness of my playstyle. So right here you can see that Chris is deciding to make me very disappointed in her. She's at full life, got buffed up Zealots, she has Attack Blessing. Blast Ares with the full force of her 3C and it still doesn't kill him. So, come on Chris. So yeah, since I was unable to kill his Ares, this is still a 5v5 and it's just going to become a slugfest. So I guess I can just let you enjoy that for a little while. So this right here is a double rip for his Yusuke. He activates both Blood Shield and Thorns from my Landius. So even though Blood Shield and Thorns kind of have some anti-synergy with each other, what it means in this case is that he'll take Thorns damage, but he also won't do that much damage to me for Yusuke to heal up using his Majing ability. So that's why he was left with kind of low HP, and which allowed me to take him out with Chris. Even with Yusuke standing on a fort and attacking way before Chris does. So as is the case with a lot of matches you guys see from me, I'm way behind in damage here. He has 2 tanks, he has a healer. even though he can't guard against my Chris with them. As you saw that even with Attack Blessing, Chris could not one-shot Ares, so it's still a little bit rough for me here. And in a slow game like this, it's definitely possible for Ares to get his 3 cost back up, and that could always mess with my formation. So I started using Chris to try to beat up Estelle a little bit. Estelle has very low magic defense, so of course most of the damage is probably coming from Chris herself. But whatever the case, you can see that Chris is unlikely to be taking out Estelle by herself as well. So here comes the second 3 cost from Ares. Here, even if he doesn't manage to kill anybody, he's still racking up a lot of damage on me. So here I actually decide that one of my Landius' lives should be expendable at this point, so I just start running him into the center rather than healing him up. But unfortunately, once again, Marduk gets a Mega Rip here. He gets Blood Shield on my Landius, just barely missing the kill there. But as you guys have seen in so many of my games, this has become Fog Wars. So almost as if to mock me, Chris decides to leave Estelle with 8 HP here, but he's already moved his healer on his turn, so I should be able to finish her off with Layden. If Layden can't do 8 damage, then he's fired. But in situations like this, you'll see that it's actually pretty easy to snowball into a defeat, because of course once you start losing units, your opponent gets to have multiple moves at the end of their turn, and they could just combine several moves to kill one of your units, which is pretty much what I'm going to be doing here. But yeah, I mean, this is just a little showcase of Wiler's ability to heal against AoE boxes, and also just tactical retreat being OP in general. Not much else I can add here, so enjoy the rest of the match where I slowly poke his units to death.